All right, good evening. Welcome, Jason. It's only you tonight. I've had a couple of people put in some apologies, say they could not make the call this evening. But we're going to look at a beginner race day strategy, how to pace, hydrate, and stay calm during the race. Now, basically, we're going to cover off those 3 points and we're going to keep it relatively simple. We don't need to overcomplicate things. A simple strategy for success to get people to the finish line successfully. So, looking at everything you need to know to have your best first race. Now, it's not going to be your first rodeo with your next race, Jason. You've done a couple of triathlons, you've done other events. So, we're going to look at pacing, we're going to look at hydration, and we're going to look at how to stay calm during the event. First of all, pacing. Some key things. We want to try and do what's known as a negative split. So whether we're doing a half marathon, for example, we're trying to get that second half of the event a little bit faster than the first half. It doesn't need to be too much faster, but we're wanting that slow increase in pace as we make our way through the event to optimize things, as opposed to going super fast at the start and just fading to the point where we have to walk and then have a long day out on the course. The same principles apply when you're doing a triathlon, except we want to try and negative split the swim, then negative split the bike, and then negative split the run. But we also want to start off cautiously through the swim and the bike, so we've got plenty of energy left for the run. So if we look at not necessarily the speed, because cycling we're going to be moving the fastest, but we're wanting to conserve energy in the first half of the event so that we've got plenty of energy for the second half of the event. That's the whole principle behind a negative split. What I often recommend, particularly for single discipline events, like a half marathon, a full marathon, even a 5K, is my 1/3 pacing strategy. That's where we take the first third of the distance. So if we're looking at a half marathon, the first 7 and a bit kilometers, relatively conservatively. The middle 1/3, a little bit faster, and then our final third, our fastest third of the event. If we take that down to a 5K, we're talking the first mile. We're wanting to run that fast. The second mile, we're wanting to run that faster. And then the final mile, we're wanting to run that fastest. When we're looking in a triathlon context, the same sort of principle applies. That first third, and we'll call it the swim for lack of a better name for now. The first third, we're wanting that really conservative. The middle third, we're wanting that holding back on those reins, possibly somewhere around that 10% mark. And when we talk about detailed pacing strategies for the longer triathlons, Ironman 70.3, half Ironman, full Ironman events, that's where we're looking at about 10 to 15% below our capability, so that when we get off the bike for our final third, we've still got plenty of energy in the tank and we can actually have a relatively fast but comfortable run to finish with. The advice I have down there is start slower than you think. Your adrenaline will lie to you. And it's very common, and I'll use Ironman and Taupo as a good example of this. The swim, everyone's sort of lining the shore there, and you get plenty of energy as you come out of the water. You get plenty of energy as you're running to the transition area. There's also plenty of people on the start of the bike course, and as you move further and further out of town, there's less and less spectators. So that energy, that vibe, the cheering that they give you gives you that boost of adrenaline. The gentle uphill on the way out of town as well also entices you to work harder than you should. So it's important that you do back off and be conscious of when that adrenaline is there, putting extra intensity into you that's unnecessary. To hold back, have a little bit in reserve, hold back on those reins, and take things a little bit easier. When we look at hydration, you need to drink to your thirst and make sure that you are having enough for that. by drinking regularly. Just small sips. It doesn't need to be 200 mils every 10 minutes or anything precise like that. A Dr. Tim Notes, who did a lot, and still does a lot of research in a range of events from Ironman through to Comrades Marathon, looking at particularly exercise in the heat. He's done a lot of research around that, and being too prescriptive or often causes a lot of issues through either overhydration or through gastrointestinal issues. But drink regularly, roughly a bottle per hour. Some people need more than that, particularly in a hot environment. Some people need less than that. And being familiar with your circumstances, your sweat rate in context to the environment that you're racing in is going to be important, and getting a good judge of that during your training. If your event is going to be longer than an hour, consider using electrolytes throughout the event, and particularly ones with salt and magnesium. That will help prevent cramping and help keep your systems functioning optimally so you can get through sufficiently. And the final one here is staying calm. And there's a few ways we can do that. Prior to the race, coming up with a race plan. And in the description to the video, I'll put a link to a race plan template that I encourage you to print off and then work through in the lead up to the event a couple of days out. Spend sort of 20 to 30 minutes in a quiet place and physically write down your answers to each of the questions on a printed version of it rather than typing online. Just putting that down in paper helps cement it in your mind so that on race day, you've got a plan. You know what power, you know what pace, you know what heart rate, whatever metric you're using to measure your performance, you know what you're going to try and deliver at different points in the event. You're going to pre-plan a lot of your nutrition, making sure you've got sufficient available both for hydration and fueling through the event, if appropriate for your event. And it's also going to have a look at the what ifs. What if this goes wrong? I'm going to do A, B, or C. And you've got that planned out so that you can control the controllables. When something happens that is outside of your control, you've got a plan in place for it. But everything else you've already planned for. Now, it might seem rather stupid to remind people to breathe during an endurance event, but that's important. Making sure that the breaths are full, filling up the lungs and getting that oxygen there. And a classic example would be on the start line for an Ironman or a half Ironman, particularly the first one of that duration, having a wee panic attack or having breathing difficulties, big deep breaths will help mitigate that and help relax you, help keep you calm as the intensity, well, not the intensity, the environment, the atmosphere, and everything is ramping up and becoming more intense, even though you're just on the start line, either standing there or treading water. So make sure you continue to breathe, and they're good quality breaths. Using a mantra, an example, strong and steady, reminding yourself that you've trained for this and you're prepared for this, are going to be key to help just mentally staying calm and keeping that everything ticking over. And finally, enjoy the event. That's the key to success in your first event. Go out there, have fun. You paid money to do it, you might as well enjoy it rather than make it something bigger in your head that is causing pain and discomfort. Just have fun on the day. Any quick questions in relation to that, Jason?
Nah, pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the breathing one I can definitely identify with because the start of the few tries that I've done sort of got about 100 meters into the swim and realized that I was no longer breathing. And I actually found concentrating on the exhalation rather than the inhalation actually slowed all of that down, which I thought was quite an interesting observation mid-panic swim.
Yeah. And if you're not exhaling, there's no space in the lungs to draw that oxygen into.
Yeah,
And so the particularly with swimming, that's a very common one. People will often hold their breaths, and even pool swimming during training, they'll hold their breath, and then when they turn their head, they're trying to exhale and then breathe in, which means there's limited time to do double the amount of things. So
yeah,
exhaling while underwater or while your face is underwater is a key part of that whole process. And then when you turn your head, there's one thing and one thing only to do, and that's to inhale. So
yeah.
fantastic point there. Any other questions in general about the topic or about trading life in general?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's a really useful topic because I certainly could have done with that before the first couple of tries that I've done as well, and just having that plan and sort of what you're expecting um, as well. It's been quite interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
So for people watching this in the future and would like to download that plan, the link is in the description, whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook. I'll include the link in both those platforms. Just download it, print it off, have it ready, and then a couple of days out from a major event, a day before a key but not a major event, sit down, put together your plan. Any final questions before we wrap it up?
No,
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. I know there was a few people keen to join us but had other commitments. They will catch up with the recorded version, and I will see them and you hopefully on our next call in a fortnight.
thanks, Ray.
You're welcome.